July 26, 2025, at 6:15 a.m., international waters off the coast of Somalia turned into a war zone. 140 masked pirates armed with rifles, machetes, and homemade explosives launched a sudden, violent assault on a U.S. cruise ship, the Pacific Monarch, carrying 978 civilians, most of them elderly tourists and families. The pirates thought it would be an easy hijacking. They were wrong. Unbeknownst to them, a distress call had already reached the United States Navy, and just 19 minutes later, an overwhelming, coordinated military response was unleashed. From the sky, UAVs and two Navy snipers deployed via C-130. From the sea, a nuclear submarine carrying 40 SEALs and an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer. From beneath the waves, a silent infiltration, timed to the second. How did the US military deploy an entire multi-layered force air, sea, and underwater without the pirates ever noticing? How many lives were lost in the chaos? Could this have been prevented? Let's go to the heart of the battle. 6:15 a.m. The attack begins from the horizon. 20 speedboats surged forward, their engines screaming. Each carried 7 shirtless pirates, faces masked, bodies gaunt and sinewy, eyes wild with madness, armed with automatic weapons, machetes, and improvised grenades. They split into 3 strike teams and raced toward the Pacific Monarch, a floating palace filled with nearly 1,000 American souls. There were no demands, no warnings, just immediate, calculated violence. The pirates opened fire without hesitation, riddling the decks with bullets. Windows exploded, the air filled with screams. Blood smeared the polished railings and scattered across sun chairs. One group breached the mid-deck, forcing women to their knees and grabbing valuables, phones, handbags, watches. Another squad stormed the VIP suites, looking for high-value hostages, billionaires they could ransom. They believed they had caught easy prey, a slow, luxurious cruise ship. But they had no idea the Americans were never truly alone. The SOS code inside the command room, Captain Richard Kane, 62 years old, a retired Navy officer turned civilian captain, made a life-or-death call. He activated a secure, classified protocol, sending a 7-word coded SOS straight to Navy command, cruise ship under attack. Immediate action. Just 4 minutes later, at a covert base 220 nautical miles away, Admiral Samuel V. Turner, veteran of 17 international rescue operations, gave the green light. The plan was already in motion. The response unfolds. An MQ-9 Reaper drone was deployed, scanning the vessel with infrared and thermal imaging, feeding a real-time 3D map to the operators. A Virginia-class nuclear submarine, already on patrol, redirected and began a stealth approach beneath the ship, carrying 40 Navy SEALs. An Arleigh Burke-class destroyer moved within 2 nautical miles, initiating a decoy negotiation to draw pirate attention. On board the Pacific Monarch, chaos turned systematic. The pirates began separating hostages. Women and the elderly were corralled together. Children clung to their grandparents. Some passengers fainted from shock or fear, but they didn't realize their countdown had already started. 47 minutes remained until the first SEALs would breach the vessel. Decision time: could 40 SEALs truly take down 140 heavily armed pirates on a ship filled with nearly 1,000 civilians? Would they attempt a clean extraction or negotiate? The answer was written into the mission code name, Silent Steel. The objective: neutralize all threats. 0 civilian casualties. Failure wasn't an option. This was about more than saving lives, it was a message to the world. 7:02 a.m. Ghosts beneath the surface. Just beneath the surface of the Indian Ocean, the submarine slowed to a crawl, only 80 feet beneath the hull of the Pacific Monarch. Inside, the SEALs sat wordless, emotionless, perfectly still, each man focused, gloved hands gripping their gear. At 7:10, they launched. Small teams of 4 SEALs each, clad in adaptive suits equipped with magnetic tethers and suction climb ascenders, silently emerged from the deep. No splashes, no lights, no sound. One by one, they ascended the cruise ship's massive hull, attaching themselves under balconies and side decks like shadows. Overhead, UAVs continued scanning. Every pirate's location was tagged and tracked via infrared and motion data, mapping the threat. The pirates had gathered over 120 hostages in the central ballroom on deck 2. Another 40 civilians were trapped near the stern in cabins. Most of the enemy were still focused on the port side, where the fake negotiation was in full swing with the nearby destroyer. They didn't know that within 10 minutes, Navy SEALs would breach in 3 coordinated fire teams moving from the ship's lowest levels, hallways, maintenance shafts, and stairwells toward critical choke points. The pirates believed they were moments from victory, but in truth, they had already lost. 3 SEAL teams had infiltrated the ship. Alpha Team was positioned near the ventilation shafts above the Grand Ballroom. Bravo Team advanced along the starboard lifeboat deck, methodically clearing each segment. Charlie Team, armed with suppressed MP7S and flash jamming gear, slipped through the narrow service corridors like ghosts. They didn't rush. Every breath, every footstep was calculated. Collateral damage was not an option. Inside the ballroom, thermal imaging showed 5 pirates pacing with rifles, one stationed near the main door. He moved like a leader. Alpha Team received their go code: hold fire, synchronize movements. Meanwhile, a second UAV pinged a separate cluster of pirates gathering hostages near the aft deck, prepping escape boats. The window to intercept was closing fast. At exactly 0729, SEAL Commander Harris issued the final command: green light, lock all zones, no friendly fire. From that moment, the silence aboard the Pacific Monarch was no longer stillness. It was tension coiled like a spring, waiting to snap. The pirates didn't know it yet, but in less than 2 minutes, their control would collapse. The United States hadn't responded with noise. It responded with precision, with patience, and a plan sharper than any blade. Before the SEALs open fire, please support us by liking, subscribing, and letting us know in the comments which country you're watching from. Now, join me as we witness the most intense hostage rescue in modern U.S. military history. At exactly 0731, the whisper in the SEALs' earpieces changed to a single word: execute. All zones go. Within milliseconds, the Pacific Monarch shifted from suffocating tension to controlled chaos. Alpha Team struck first. A flashbang was dropped through the ballroom's overhead ventilation grate, detonating with a dull thump. And a blinding stroke. The 5 pirates inside were stunned, eyes scorched white, ears ringing. Before they could react, 2 were shot clean through the head with subsonic rounds from above. A third lunged toward a hostage. 2 rounds tore through his clavicle mid-motion, dropping him flat. His arm never made it. Deck 3, Bravo Team surged through the service stairwell, weapons sweeping the halls. 1 pirate was dragging a woman by the arm. He didn't make it to the next step. Another was prying open a lifeboat hatch. A single round to the base of his skull sent him silently tumbling overboard. Terrified hostages in the corridor were ordered, "We're US Navy, you're safe. Stay down, hands over your head." Charlie Team, moving like shadows, jammed pirate communications with portable signal disruptors. They breached the kitchen area where 4 pirates had holed up, hiding behind metal trolleys. 1 pirate raised a grenade. Charlie's lead man dropped him before the pin left his hand. Above, in the upper atmosphere, a MQ-9 Reaper drone tracked 7 pirates sprinting toward the escape boats at the aft. They were running for their lives, but SEAL Sniper Team Viper, recently airdropped from a C-130, was already in position, hovering 1,800 feet above sea level. In 22 seconds, 5 pirates were dead. To drop their weapons and raised their hands. By 0737, over 60 pirates had been neutralized. No SEALs killed, but it wasn't over yet. Suddenly, a deafening blast echoed from the central stairwell. A pirate wearing a vest of explosives charged toward the ballroom in a suicide run. SEAL Corporal Mason, age 34, tackled him mid-step. Using the suppressor on his MP7 like a club, he beat the man unconscious before he could reach the detonator. Elsewhere, another SEAL took a grazing shot to the shoulder. He waved off the medics, reloaded, and pressed forward, clearing cabin after cabin. By 07:02, the final quarter was secure. The entire operation from the first flashbang to the last room cleared had taken just 11 minutes. 0 hostages killed, 3 SEALs lightly injured, but most importantly, the Pacific Monarch was still afloat. And the United States had just demonstrated unmatched discipline and dominance under fire. Outside, the sun rose higher, casting light over blood-slaked decks and the shattered weapons of the fallen. On board, over 1,000 Americans were still alive. And in Washington, a single message was transmitted back to the White House: Monarch secured. No civilians lost, the flag still flies. By 07:03, the assault had ended. No more gunfire, no screams, no breaking glass. Just silence and the low, steady hum of American hardware asserting absolute control. SEAL units moved through the remaining compartments with methodical precision. In the engine room, two pirates were found cowering behind fuel crates. They raised their hands in surrender before a single word was uttered. On the upper promenade, 3 more tried to blend in among the hostages. They were swiftly identified, restrained, and zip-tied without resistance. Then came the final act. At the stern of the ship, under the golden glow of the rising sun, the last 12 pirates emerged. Barefoot, shirtless, and drenched in sweat, they had discarded their weapons. Overboard, one of them clutched a torn bedsheet as a makeshift white flag. Without a word, they dropped to their knees. Pleading for mercy, they received none. They were treated in accordance with military protocol, searched, cuffed, and lined up under armed guard as helicopters prepared for extraction. More than 70 pirates had been killed, 20 were critically wounded, and the remaining attackers had surrendered without further confrontation. From the first strike to the final room cleared, the entire operation lasted just under 19 minutes. Most remarkable of all, not a single civilian was lost. 3 Navy SEALs were injured too from shrapnel, 1 with a broken wrist during close quarters combat, but all were expected to make full recoveries. On board the Pacific Monarch, a cautious but growing cheer rippled through the crowd of passengers. Tears welled in eyes, prayers were whispered in gratitude, and elderly couples clung to one another. A young girl lifted the small American flag. She had packed for the cruise and waved it proudly as the SEALs passed. Then the ship's loudspeakers crackled to life. "This is Captain Kane," came the calm voice over the intercom. "I have only one thing to say: you are safe. And you have the United States Navy to thank for it." Nearby, the guided missile destroyer that had served as a covert decoy throughout the crisis launched a fast response boat to collect the captured pirates. Navy medics boarded the cruise ship to assess passengers for injuries, trauma, or dehydration. Water, food, and blankets were immediately distributed. Above, helicopters circled to ensure total airspace security. By 0810 hours, the Pacific Monarch was fully under U.S. control, escorted by destroyer and UAV, but the mission wasn't just a success. It was a message at Central Command. Admiral Turner sent a concise transmission to the Pentagon: target neutralized. Civilians secured, pirates in custody, message delivered. And that message echoed far beyond the deck of a cruise ship. If you threaten American lives anywhere on Earth, there will be no escape. No negotiations, no second chances. The United States will find you. And it will respond with speed, with precision, and with overwhelming force. The rescue of the Pacific Monarch was more than a tactical victory. It was a declaration of principle. In an age when danger can appear from the depths or strike in the middle of open seas, this operation reaffirmed a core truth: the United States protects its own. No matter how remote the threat, no matter how short the warning, no matter how outnumbered the innocent, with nearly 1,000 civilians held at gunpoint and 140 pirates believing they could turn a pleasure cruise into a massacre, the U.S. response was not just fast, it was surgical. UAVs, submarines, airborne snipers, SEAL commandos, all deployed. in unison, and yet not a single hostage was lost. Not one American citizen was left behind. That isn't just military capability, that's a national promise fulfilled. And for the world watching, the message was clearer than any press briefing. If you come for the American people, you will face the full weight of American resolve. But this story is more than tactics, tech, or triumph. It's a reminder of what truly matters: the sanctity of human life, the duty to protect the defenseless, and the sacred bond between citizens and their defenders. To distant onlookers, it may have looked like military might. But for those on board that ship, it was something. For deeper, hope delivered not by sirens or speeches, but by silent fins rising from the sea. And for those who would test America's resolve in the future, let this serve as your warning. You may outnumber the innocent, but you will never outmatch the spirit of the United States. If this story moved you, informed you, or reminded you, why